Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. That is Proverbs 17:22. I am your host, Sandra Flach. Welcome to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, where I am here to encourage you and equip you for your unique parenting journey. I, too, am an adoptive mom. I'm mom to 8, 5 through adoption. So all 5 of my kiddos have experienced trauma. Several of them prenatal exposure to substances. 2 were diagnosed fetal alcohol syndrome. So I get it. And I am also navigating the challenges of raising children with trauma and prenatal exposure to substances. So my hope is that this podcast will become an invaluable resource to you on your parenting journey. It is something that I would never have imagined back in the early days of my journey, ever having something like this. I don't even know if podcasts were invented back then, but they are here now, and I'm here for you. And my prayer is that you will just be encouraged and better equipped and feel like you are not alone on this journey, because you're not. We're here for you. And this week we have back Dr. Jerrod Brown. He is our favorite doctor returning guest to the show. But before we get to Dr. Brown, just a couple of reminders here. My new devotional book, Soul Care Saturday, 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms, now available on Amazon. I'm so excited about this devotional book because each week you will find scripture, a word of encouragement through the devotional that I wrote, a breath prayer based on the scripture of that week, going deeper verses and a journaling page, and beautiful illustrations that really capture my heart. And my desire for this devotional was really that it would that the Lord would use it to minister to you, to just bring refreshing and renewal to your spirit. I always think of Psalm 23, where, the shepherd leads us beside still waters and restores our soul. So that's really my goal and desire with this devotional. So I hope that you will check it out. It is available on Amazon. And if you won a free copy or you purchased a copy, would you do me a huge, huge favor? I would be so blessed and grateful if you left a review on Amazon for the devotional. So right where you can go to the book on Amazon, and then you'll see where there are reviews. I think we have about 28 reviews right now. My goal is to get at least 50. But if you go to where reviews are, you'll see a button where you can click to leave a review. So if you purchase the book, whether you purchased it on Amazon or at a conference, or you won it as a gift or somebody gave it to you as a gift, you can leave a review. And if you got it someplace other than Amazon, you can say in your review, I received this as a gift, or I bought this at a conference. And you can, leave a verified review. And that would be a huge blessing. I would appreciate it so much. So if you would do that for me, I would be grateful. Thank you. Now, be sure to check out our website, justicefororphansny.org. That is the umbrella organization, our nonprofit, that all of the adoption and foster care journey resources comes under, from this podcast to all of the other things. My blog, I just posted my new February blog post is up. All of the upcoming FASD online workshops are listed there that you can register for. And of course, you can sign up for our Hope for the FASD Journey support group, and access all of our special episodes by Dr. Jerrod Brown. So they're all in the podcast platform. So if you were to scroll through all of the podcasts listed, wherever you listen, whether you listen from Apple or Spotify or wherever. But we have a special place on our website where we keep all of Dr. Brown's episodes to make it easier, because we've done dozens of episodes with Dr. Brown. So just to make it easy for you to find them when you hear him and you think, gosh, I would love more of just what he's talking about, you can find them there on our website. Also, be sure to like and follow our social media pages for the adoption and foster care journey. We're on Facebook as the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, and we are on Instagram at AFC_journey. So I would love to connect with you there as well as in person. I'm booking my 2026 calendar, and just for the first half of the year, I just got back from Birmingham, Alabama, my first time in Alabama, and the church at Brook Hills, the amazing folks there, Anita and her team brought me in to spend Saturday. I think we were like 8:30 to 12:30, where I was able to present on FASD to a room full of foster and adoptive parents and social workers and school teachers and so many amazing folks. It was such a wonderful time. I got great feedback. They took such good care of me. So just thrilled. So if you can get out to one of these conferences, or if you would like me if you would like to bring me in for a conference that your group wants to host, I am available. I will be this month. I'll be at Mobilize, Ohio on March 21st. That is at the North Canton Chapel. I'll be leading 3 breakout sessions, 2 on FASD and 1 on soul care. And then I will be in Swansboro, North Carolina, April 30th to May 2nd for the Renew Retreat. That is a retreat for foster and adoptive parents. So again, if you can get out to one of these conferences, wonderful. In the fall, of course, I will be at CAFA when replanted and some other places. But if you are interested in having me come to speak to your group, lead an FASD training, or if you're doing a retreat for foster and adoptive parents or moms, please contact me. I do both in-person and online trainings and workshops. So my email is in the show notes. You can go there and check it out and send me an email. I'd be glad to have a conversation about bringing me in for your group. So I'm super excited to do things like that. Love it. So let's see what else. Today, we're going to get to our guest. We have, of course, our regular doctor in the house, Dr. Jerrod Brown. He's going to be sharing about an interesting topic today he calls Lego therapy. And I don't think he means, when parents step on those sharp, hard little plastic blocks and we need some therapy on our feet. I don't think that's what he's talking about, but he is going to unpack it. I've been a parent forever, and I feel like my house has been filled with Legos forever, and love them, love that my kids have always loved them. But he's going to unpack Legos like maybe we've never thought of them before. So just to let you know a little bit about Dr. Brown, he has an extensive bio. He has 5 PhDs and specializes in topics related to autism, FASD, confabulation, suggestibility, trauma, other life adversities, executive dysfunction, criminal recidivism, traumatic brain injury, all kinds of things that you can imagine would definitely be related to foster and adoptive parenting. But you can check out his full bio on our website, along with the dozens of bonus episodes that I told you about, where he unpacks lots of important topics related to things foster and adoptive parents need to know. But now we're going to dive into our conversation with Dr. Jerrod Brown about Lego therapy. So let's welcome Dr. Jerrod Brown. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Sandra, thank you, my friend, for having me back. I'm excited to be here and talk about this topic.
I am super excited too. I feel like Legos, what parent doesn't know about Legos? I kind of, in my opening, talked about it's not, we're going to talk about Lego therapy today, but it's not, where parents step on those sharp little hard blocks and we need therapy on our feet. You're definitely going to take a serious approach to this. And I'm excited about it because I myself have kiddos who've been the proverbial Lego maniac, to kids who don't really like hands-on anything. But I feel like every parent would be able to get so much out of this topic. So I'm just going to hand it off to you to explain what exactly it is.
Thanks again, Sandra. Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. So today going to talk about like how do you use like Lego bricks? Not just for therapy. This would be very appropriate, I think, for a therapist to use, of course. But if we just call this brick building, skills building using Lego bricks, that can be used with coaches, teachers, mentors, parents, caregivers. So we'll talk about this topic. I've been doing a lot of work in this area lately. I've had some training in this. I went through a couple training programs out of the UK online a good handful of years ago. So I've been interested in this topic for probably about 6 years now, but just in the last year, I'm really starting to do more trainings for different groups and going on different podcast programs. And I became interested in this topic because in a lot of the work I've done with folks with FASD, autism, ADHD, even brain injuries, and kids with trauma and adults, the topic of Legos started coming up more. And I'm not saying in every case, but if we introduce the topic of Legos, that individual really seemed to light up. And the research is pretty clear, especially with neurodivergent populations. The use of Legos is a wonderful 3D visual tool. It's a communication tool. It's a social building tool. It can be done individually. It can be done one-on-one. It can be done in a very structured or unstructured format. And caregivers can do this as well. We'll talk about a lot of things. You can see my slides here. If you're listening to this audio, definitely check out Sandra's YouTube channel if you want to see these slides visually. But here's my email address. Reach out, folks, if you have questions. Here's a copy of my brief professional biography. I'm a professor, trainer, researcher, consultant. Most of my work is in the area of like neurodivergent conditions, neurodevelopmental disorders, trauma and attachment related topics. And the talk today, I have it just very straightforward. What is Lego-based therapy? What is Lego-based interventions? Part two today, some different things you'd want to consider if you're a professional or caregiver or maybe a community provider and you want to implement maybe a Lego program. We'll talk about that. And then we'll wrap it up with some different strategies, solutions, interventions. So when we get into this topic, what is Lego-based interventions? Why can it be a therapeutic tool, a resource, a communication tool? Well, let's first talk about neurodivergent populations. If you see this slide here, there's a lot going on. The term neurodivergence is an umbrella term that basically represents individuals that have unique and different neurological kinds of things going on. I like this field of study. I like this term because it doesn't just focus on like the deficits, limitations. It also really capitalizes on that individual's positives, their strengths, their attributes, their skills. Very, very important. Everybody with one of these conditions is unique. Everyone with one of these conditions has a number of strengths. And under this umbrella, the main terms that you would find would be autism, FASD, ADHD, intellectual disability, TBI, communication disorders, dyslexia, and some other learning challenges. Those are the big ones. There's other ones too, depending on the research you look at. It's important too that when you are working with someone with a neurodivergent condition, if you're raising a child or a teenager or an adult who has one of these conditions, there's no way around it. There are challenges, there are limitations we have to be aware of. And again, everyone is different. But if you see this slide here, these are some of the common challenge areas that come up when we're talking about neurodivergent conditions. Social skill limitations, impulse control problems in a lot of cases, problems with attention, sometimes problems with memory, learning, executive function impairment. As we get closer into talking about the use of Legos, Lego building blocks, according to the research, can really target a lot of these deficit areas and really focus on skill enhancement. That is one big reason why I really like the topic of Lego interventions. And these are red flag indicators, just in case you're curious. But again, everybody is different with a neurodivergent condition. This is not intended to diagnose anyone, but a lot of folks with some of these conditions oftentimes get misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed or even overdiagnosed. How many people do you know with FASD that have like a list of 10 diagnoses? Are those diagnoses accurate? And maybe it's more rooted in prenatal trauma and attachment issues, probably in a lot of cases. But the more we can get to the root and get that accurate diagnosis, then we can find that treatment team that really understands the nuances here. But these are some possible signs of a neurodivergent condition according to a variety of articles. And again, you can see here, if you're looking at this visually, this can overlap with so many things: sensory sensitivities, feeding problems, things of that nature. It gets complicated. So now we get into Legos. We all know what Legos are, or Lego blocks, Lego bricks, but this is a nice article I just always quote. I think it sums it up nicely. These have been referred to in the research literature as magic plastic blocks. And I do agree with that statement because I just see, again, people light up when they talk about Legos or play with Legos. And it's not just people with a neurodivergent condition. I know adults that love playing Legos still. I have friends that love playing Legos, and for a variety of reasons. So, and again, the colors are fun. It's a 3D visual tool. Most people have good childhood memories about playing with Lego blocks. I mean, not everybody. There's limitations. We'll talk about that as well. But let's get into some of the good stuff. What does some of this research literature say? And a lot of this research literature has been published with folks on the autism spectrum. A lot of it is in that realm. But some of this research says playing with Lego bricks can promote creativity, enhance language skills, enhance social emotional skills, and promote imagination. These are all good for anybody. This is a nice reminder, and this is from an article that was published in 2025, that the use of Lego bricks has been studied and used in all kinds of different settings, not just for therapeutic purposes, but it's been used in like robotics, understanding behavioral patterns. We have the educators here, people working in a K through 12 environment or even a college setting. You will find articles that talk about if you use Lego bricks in your curriculum, that may enhance learning outcomes. This has been used in architecture settings, the energy industry, corporate settings, the list goes on. So it's very applicable. That's another reason why I like the use of Legos, because it's not just geared toward kids with kind of special conditions, special needs. It can be used in any settings and even in team environments. If you're working in an organization, you can bring this into your organization and use it as a team tool, building exercise. Sandra, I'm going to stop before we get into what Lego therapy is.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
Oh gosh, so many things are crossing my mind about this because my oldest child is not a child anymore. He's 36. Down to my youngest is 20. So I've had Legos in my house for a really long time, and some of my kids were more drawn to them than others. And it's making me think of, we hear all the time about play therapy. Is Lego therapy, is that like play therapy?
The research says it is a type of play therapy. Yep. And that's I want to preface too, when you're using the term Lego therapy, that's going to be done by like a registered play therapist or a mental health therapist, typically someone who's licensed or works under the direction of a licensed person. It's going to be more structured. Now, if you take out the word therapy and you put in Lego coaching, Lego education, Lego skills building, that can be used by a parent, a teacher, a mentor, anyone without like having a license. But you'd want to get some training, you'd want to collaborate with folks. And there's some different therapeutic protocols to this I'll show you, but I like I really like Lego skills building because then you're not locked into just working with a licensed provider. But when you're getting into the weeds, like maybe you're using Lego therapy to work with kids on unraveling those emotions from trauma, you would want to have someone that has some credentials and training in that because that could bring up a lot of trauma triggers and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. And then, but, just in general, how it helps to build creativity, working together. I know we homeschooled for a number of years. So we had just this gigantic plastic bin filled with Legos, and the kids would all the time have their hands in this bucket. And, my oldest son, who did not like Legos really, he wasn't into, he was more very literal and concrete. He didn't like imaginative play. He just was not, then my other son was totally into Legos and action figures and Lord of the Rings and things like that. But my older son figured out he called it a bank. He built a bank out of Lego bricks. And then all my kids had these little, they all called them gems, but they're the little teeny tiny round pieces. I'm not even sure what they were used for in the Lego kits or whatever, but they called them gems. And my older son convinced all the other kids to put their gems in his bank. And then he got them all and then he took them. So then there was this ongoing, like, negotiations to get their gems back. But it was really creative play. And the kid who didn't like creative play was actually engaging in creative play. And my kids as adults still talk about that whole thing about how their older brother took all their gems. And anyway, it's a family story for sure. But Legos were a big part of our everyday for, all of my kids, from my neurotypical bio kids to my children who came to us through adoption, who have more, who have the FASD. So I feel like every parent listening can be nodding their head about, relating to some of these stories and about Legos.
Love it. Thank you, Sandra. Very helpful. So if you look at this slide here again, Lego therapy, it's a type of play therapy. It's a type of social skill building therapy. And this is a brief overview, if you see this slide here, of kind of what the research literature says about Lego-based therapy. And there's more to it, but it's a highly structured, predictable, somatic kind of toy. It's an interactive intervention method. Typically, a traditional Lego therapy kind of group or program would not be done individually. Now, however, there's different protocols where you can use this individually. No problem there. It's a child-centered play-based therapeutic activity. It provides structure, direction, organization. It's a group-based skills intervention. It is peer mediated, so other kids, teenagers in that group or adults, they each have a role. And when they do that role, they learn turn taking. They learn how to be patient and they can model that behavior. And that's the beauty of this too. It's not just the counselor therapist that's teaching, it's the other people and the other participants. They each have a role. So it's peer mediated. There's peer instructions in some protocols. Maybe it's with young kids, and maybe there's a teenager mentor in there. So it's being kind of mentored by someone that may have autism or another neurodivergent condition who's a little older, who's gone through this in conjunction with having a therapist in there. When you study Lego therapy, you'd want to be aware of this person, Dr. Daniel Legoff. You'd want to add him to your name. I don't know him personally. Love his work. Got a great website. Got at least a book or two out on here on this. But what he says, Lego therapy, usually administered in a group-based setting, requires supervision by a licensed certified professional. Sessions last around 90 minutes. And then the group is divided into different parts. There's a builder, a parts gatherer, and an engineer. There's a lot more to this, but Lego skills can be tailored again. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It doesn't have to involve 3 people, and it doesn't have to be done face to face. There's plenty of articles that talk, you can do this remotely, telehealth as well. And I love this because it's flexible. We're not locked into like some rigid script because everybody needs individualized approaches. So maybe someone wouldn't do well sitting in a 90-minute group because of attention and hyperactivity issues. Maybe you're just doing it for a few minutes at a time, taking breaks, coming back to it. But you can see here, the flexibility of this is great. And there's some different things you'd want to be aware of. It can be done one-on-one, in a group, 2-on-2, 1-on-3. The list goes on and on and on. And this is overwhelming slide, but just it's meant to be overwhelming. What are some of the benefits of engaging in Lego therapy? The research says, well, it can help with perspective taking. You've heard me probably talk about theory of mind deficits. That's perspective taking. It teaches kids how to make apologies. It is a great way to teach eye gaze and eye watching. It's a communication tool. You can teach people how to ask appropriate questions. You're teaching sharing skills, cooperation, motivation, and the list goes on. This is great for anybody. And this is a big issue for folks with FASD and autism and other kinds of neurodivergent conditions, and this comes up all the time. The child, teenager, adult goes to therapy. They learn a great skill in therapy. They leave the therapy office and now they completely forgot about what they just learned and they can't apply it to different settings. That's a generalization deficit. Lego-based approaches can teach kids, teenagers, and adults how to master a skill and then use it in real life situations. That's the key. We want to not just learn the skill in the moment, but then how do we apply that to future situations on this in the playground or in the lunchroom or at home or as the person gets older in a job. Generalization of skills can be taught using Lego bricks. This is a case I consulted on. This was an adult male on the autism spectrum. And I literally just asked him about his experience of playing with Legos and what was some of the benefits that he personally saw in himself after playing with Legos for a long period of time over many, many years. He said it helped improve his hand-eye coordination. It helped him become more patient. It helped him hang in there and have more grit. It was rewarding to complete the project. It kept his mind active. It kept his mind focused, and he really struggled with distraction. Legos helped him stay more focused. It helped him focus on the moment, and then that helped him reduce worry and rumination about the future. It helped him learn better self-management skills. It reduced negative thinking. It helped him get out of his comfort zone too, because some Lego projects are complicated and there's a lot of step-by-step instructions you need. And it also helped him learn how to follow instructions, which then also helped him apply that to like following a recipe to cook something. So it helped him learn one skill of following instructions, but then apply it to another setting. Lego-based interventions can also be used with folks that have brain injuries. Good articles out there on that, and this is one article that does talk about some empirical-based literature that says the use of Lego bricks can be very helpful with brain injured clients. Why do you want to care about brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries? Well, it is another neurodivergent condition. It's common. It's a hidden disability. Folks with brain injuries are different across the board too, for a variety of reasons. But if you see this slide here, folks with a brain injury may have higher levels of irritability, impulse control problems. Everybody with a brain injury probably is going to have at least some subtle to moderate to severe executive function impairments. And when we think about brain-based impairments, cognitive deficits associated with a traumatic brain injury, a lot of these look very familiar across the board when we're talking about other neurodivergent conditions. More attention issues, more processing speed deficits. So somebody goes to therapy, the therapist is talking really fast, maybe doesn't have a lot of training in neurodivergent conditions. That client has slow processing speed. Their brain becomes very cluttered and there becomes a traffic jam of information in their brain. Legos, playing with Legos, you don't have to use as many words. You can externalize the problem, and that can really help reduce the processing speed deficits and even working memory deficits. And a lot of folks with a brain injury, and this applies to folks too with ADHD, autism, FASD, are going to have a lot of emotional problems. Playing with Legos can help address emotional problems, and I'll show some slides on that in a few. But also, a lot of people with a brain injury may be dealing with alexithymia, emotional blindness. We've talked a lot about that in other podcast episodes. That's when a client or somebody has difficulty naming, labeling, and processing emotions. Sandra, I'm going to park the brakes there and open it up for more questions before we get into like implementation, screening, things of that nature.
Yeah, I love this and I love your slides. So I hope that our listeners will actually take the time to go to our YouTube channel and look at them because it's definitely so much great visual content as well. But just a couple things with I found that with my kiddos, it was definitely like when they got a Lego set where you have to follow the instructions and put it together to get the finished product. They definitely where they might not have had good skills and focusing, in other areas when it came to building the Legos. It made them focus. They learned to focus on something because they wanted to get that finished product done. They learned to follow the step-by-step directions. I just found that, definitely all the way around good skills that they're learning. I also just wanted to add that looking at your slides with the symptoms of traumatic brain injury, it's like every one of those symptoms match the primary symptoms of FASD. So again, that always makes me think and reminds me that, if you have a child who was prenatally exposed to alcohol, you have a child with a brain injury, and it very much is the same. And alexithymia, where you talked about the emotional blindness there. We did a whole episode with Dr. Brown on alexithymia. That is one of those episodes that is on our website with all of our episodes with Dr. Brown. So if that was something that intrigued you and you're a newer listener and you didn't know we had an episode just on that, I encourage you to go check that out. But keep going, Dr. Brown. This is such great content.
Thank you, Sandra. And folks, you're probably wondering, well, why didn't he talk about FASD or ADHD? Well, a lot of what I talked about in that last section would apply. And there are some articles that have been published on ADHD and Lego interventions. I could be wrong on this, Sandra. I have never come across one research article that has ever looked at the use of Legos with folks with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. I have no clue why that's the case because I can tell you this much. I've worked with enough folks with FASD. Almost always they love Legos. I've talked to enough caregivers who are raising a child with FASD. Legos, try it out. I don't think we have anything to lose
Right.
because the worst thing is there's not going to be any side effects to this. And, let's get creative. Most folks with FASD have a whole team of professionals. What happens if each of those team members would get a little training on this? And maybe even use it as an icebreaker when you're meeting with that person for the first time in your office. Have a little bucket of Legos and just ask them, hey, do you like Legos? Would you like to put a few together as we talk? That might bring down the stress, anxiety, help the person focus more and maybe open up more. Just my 2 cents. So,
Yeah.
all right, so let's get the bad stuff out of the way. There are limitations to any topic, and this is what some of the research says in terms of what are the research limitations of Lego therapy? Well, some of the studies, small sample sizes, the methodologies used in some of these studies, they had different designs, and there's inconsistencies in delivery. So maybe it's some studies have a trainer who's certified, another study has a trainer who's licensed, maybe another study has somebody that isn't licensed but's had training in it. All in all, in my opinion, going through the majority of Lego therapy intervention literature, there's way more positives than there are negatives, but just wanted to get that out there. And there are some limitations, but I think these are really easy to overcome. Like if you're asking yourself, I would like to start a Lego program. I'd like to start a Lego therapy practice or add it on to what I'm doing. Well, there are some practical challenges, the research says. Location, finding Lego bricks. Maybe you're working with underserved populations that don't have money. The cleanup process and scheduling conflicts. Every one of these is very, very easy to overcome. I'll just point out number 2 here. You'll find different programs around the country where they started a Lego program and they put a call to action out to their church or their community providers or their neighbors, and people donated Legos. There was no problem whatsoever. Here's an article that just talks about some basic steps to consider when you want to start a Lego program. Very common sense, and it can be modified and individualized to your setting. Well, we need to identify a location, but maybe you're doing it telehealth, so we need to think about that as well. We want to secure a supply of bricks, a good supply. How do we recruit participants? Do we have a target niche area? Are we only wanting to focus on kids with autism or FASD, or are we opening it up to everybody? We want to have at least somewhat of an agenda. Are you incorporating a mix of activities? So basically what that would mean is, here's an example. Are you having a mini contest with your group where it's a speed challenge? So you put it out to everybody. Okay, you got 5 minutes, put together your blocks. Let's see what you come up with. Maybe it's a blind kind of activity where you just ask everybody, all right, create something based on how you're feeling right now. Maybe it's a theme night. Maybe we have Star Wars night or Lord of the Rings night. Or maybe there's some collaborative builds. We're doing it as a group. There's many examples. Get creative. How to structure a session. Well, this is just one example of many, but maybe there's an introduction session where you have everybody put together something for a few minutes, and then it's kind of almost an icebreaker. You go around the room and you ask each participant, all right, tell me what you just put together. What are you feeling? Hey, that's great. That's targeting a lot of things. Efforts to build skills that generalize beyond the session. So those are those skills you're teaching in the session that hopefully leave that session and can be applied in other settings. Again, quick challenges. This might be good for people that have some slower processing speed, and we're trying to strengthen their brain, almost build more neuroplasticity to help them get a little faster at something. Maybe there's a variety of building activities, or you have a theme. Again, you're connecting with things in real life. Maybe it's not focusing on negative stuff, but telling everybody, build something based on when you felt your happiest, and then share that with the group. Here's something from the Lego Corporation. You can see my citation at the end, but the Lego Corporation has some beautiful resources on their website. And Sandra, you and I have talked about this numerous times. How do we get kids to get off the screen and reduce screen time exposure? And how do we teach healthy online behaviors? Well, this is a good article you'd want to check out that teaches parents, caregivers, professionals how to use Legos and build them and then talk about them to build better gaming routines and online kindness. Maybe you're in a school setting right now and you're in a K through 12 or maybe even a college setting and you're asking yourself, well, I'd like to start a Lego club. Well, you probably want to get permission from your supervisor's administration. How do you recruit additional coordinators, different professionals? Maybe it's a community worker, maybe it's some caregivers who volunteer. You'd want to identify the event, location, and storage. Clean up and sorting of the bricks. You want to make sure, obviously, we need to be aware of germs. So if you get a bunch of donations, we want to clean those bricks really nicely and organize them. Develop your activities. What are you trying to accomplish? And then how do you publicize it? In the community, maybe you don't work in a K through 12 environment. You want to start something just in your community. Maybe a community ed class. Maybe it's at your local church or whatever it is. This is a nice article that just gives an example called Homegrown Learners. It's a Lego club and it consists of adult learners, a teen helper, and 5 children. This is just one example of many. You don't have to be locked into 5 children. Maybe it's 3 children or 10 children. But this gives some just different suggestions. And for this particular group, sessions occurred every 2 weeks for 90 minutes. Each session consisted of a beginning. So you had a brief fun activity. So it was a paper bag challenge. So maybe you, as the facilitator, you have the kids come in and you have these brown paper bags. And in there, the kids can't see what's going on. But inside is an instruction and some Legos. So you're teaching them how to wait, be patient, and then you're teaching them to look at that instruction, put it together, and then after they're done, share with the group. Maybe there is a wrap-up section where you have Lego bingo and you wrap up and you're having fun and you serve really healthy snacks, nothing processed, no sugar sweetened beverages, please. So that's a whole nother story, another day. So here's another nice article. And again, you don't have to be locked into this. These are just some examples you'll find out there. Here are 8 different Lego club rules according to just one article. So number 1, if you break it, you have to fix it or ask for help. So you're teaching kids how to be mindful of property, and you're also teaching kids how to ask questions for help. That's a great skill to teach. If someone else is using it, don't take it, ask first. You're again teaching turn taking. You're teaching ownership. That's kind of perspective taking theory of mind. You're learning how to build things together. So working on a team. Maybe you have a child right now and they talk so loud in an indoor environment, it's alarming to other people. Well, you're modeling, use indoor voices, another great skill. Teaching kids body awareness, keeping hands to yourself. Teaching kids how to be kind and nice and using polite words. Any of you have any children right now that don't pick up after themselves at home? Well, I know I do. So a Lego group can also teach kids how to not only put it together and get it out, but then when you're done, modeling how to clean it up and stay organized. And then do not put things in your mouth. We can teach that skill too. One of the limitations we do want to be aware of, if a child, teenager, or adult has a tendency to like put things in their mouth and try to swallow things, that is a safety consideration you want to consider. This I put together, you can see visually. I think it's very important. If you want to start a Lego program, be very mindful of how you market it and what words you do, because there's a big difference between a Lego club and a Lego therapy group. So even if you have a club, you can still teach skills in there. And a Lego club could be ran by a parent, a coach, a teacher, and the list goes on. Other reasons why I love Lego-based approaches, because we have research that specifically shows that these approaches can help kids improve cognitive abilities. If you're raising a child with autism, ADHD, FASD, they are dealing with some cognitive-based impairments on some level. What is cognition? Well, it's how we function in day-to-day life. It relates to memory, learning, language, visual spatial skills, executive function. It really guides the bus with how human beings are going to be successful in life. What are the things that can adversely impact cognition? Prenatal alcohol exposure, childhood trauma, smoking cigarettes, untreated depression, unmanaged cholesterol, blood pressure issues, diabetes that goes unchecked, sedentary behaviors. The list goes on. Why does Lego-based approaches help promote cognitive skills? I don't want to leave you hanging. Well, why do they help? Well, it helps kids learn how to identify bricks by color, size, and shape. That's a very good thing. It can help teach kids how to create towers with the largest bricks on the bottom. And then as they're building, they're using smaller bricks as they go up top. That is so good for cognitive brain development. Learning how to match bricks to a picture. Maybe you're showing a visual picture. That's a great skill. You can teach kids how to count by using bricks by color. Finding other objects is a great thing. Sorting behaviors, following directions. These can be applied to school settings, functional skills, everywhere you can imagine. Very good stuff. Problem-solving deficits are very common among people with FASD, autism, ADHD. Using Lego-based approaches can teach problem-solving skills. This is a model, it's just a common sense approach. I just want to introduce all of you to it. The SSTA model for problem solving, it's just very common sense, but I think it could be applied in a Lego-based approach. So the first S, teaching people how to just stop, slow down. The more we can pause and reflect and let the dust settle in our brain, that's a good thing. As we slow down, it helps slow down our anxiety. It allows our brain to catch up, and then we make better thinking decisions. And then we can act. If you were to infuse Legos in here, I think it could really help with this and promote better problem solving. Anybody raising a child right now that's dealing with any internal problems like stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, shame, self-esteem issues? The answer is probably yes, unfortunately. Using Legos is a great tool to help kids make sense of those inner emotions more effectively. When you're doing that, make sure you're doing in conjunction with like a qualified specialist, of course. What are the threats to emotional health that we'd want to be aware of? Well, there's a million of them. And if you can look at the YouTube channel Sandra mentioned, you can see here visually, there are so many things that can adversely impact our emotional health and well-being. Burnout, alexithymia, loneliness, fear, attachment problems, stress. I do think using Lego bricks in a coaching skills therapeutic manner, I'm not saying it's going to cure these things, but I do think it's another tool to consider that can definitely help combat these things in conjunction with other approaches. Anybody dealing with loneliness? Well, there's different articles out there that talk about using Lego interventions to help combat loneliness. There's a couple of programs, did you know, Sandra, around the country, you can find this, even for adults in dementia care programs where they're introducing Lego groups in those settings, and it's really showing some benefit of reducing loneliness. And before I stop, Sandra, and kick it back to you, a couple other things just to think about again. Here's another reminder that if you are struggling with your child or teenager or adult on getting them off the screen or reducing their screen time exposure, here's another good article worth checking out that talks about some of the benefits and reasons why you'd want to start using Lego activities, because it is a great way to reduce screen time exposure, and it can serve to help kids develop better attention span and focus, creativity, hand-eye coordination, interpersonal skills. Sandra, I'll stop there. I know we probably have some insights I'd love to hear.
Yeah, just some thoughts, but I'll start with the slide that you just had on there because, we do want to get our kids off the screen. And there's so many adverse effects that screen time have on our kids, right? And our kids already have challenges with attention and focus, social skills, all of the things. And then screen time just sort of exacerbates those challenges, those symptoms, whereas we can get them off the screens and into the Legos, and we can improve attention span and creativity and social skills. So I see that as a real win-win. Um, I also love the idea of the Lego club. And I was thinking, I know oftentimes with kids, and I know our audience as foster and adoptive parents, our kids don't necessarily socially fit in with their own peer group, especially if they have FASD, for example, right? They tend to be a little bit younger than we can call that dysmaturity or whatever. They're just younger overall compared to their peers. And I found, like, for example, with my boys, when we were doing homeschooling, and then we would do a homeschool co-op, academically, their reading level was lower, their social skills were a little bit, stunted. They just didn't fit or feel good in that environment where they always sort of felt inferior because they were different. But I love the idea of a Lego club because everybody can learn through Legos. You don't have to, be a good reader. You don't, you can grow in your social skills. I just kind of feel like it's kind of a way you could level the playing field, and give kids with neurodiversity, an opportunity to socialize and not feel, less than. They can feel good about themselves because many of our kids do have, wonderful strengths. And sometimes it is in, the area of like building and doing hands-on things. One of my boys, he loved Legos when he was little, and building things out of Legos was something he loved doing. And then eventually he learned to do some woodworking with his dad. And then he learned how to, in high school, he took a welding program. And then now he's into small engine repair. So all of these opportunities to use his hands and to tinker and work, that became his strength. And now he uses it on the job even. He's 22 now. So I just see where, these Lego blocks, right? These bricks can really help in so many ways. And I love, this conversation that we're having and how it can really help our kids.
Thank you, my friend. Very great insights. And this slide here just hopefully reminds us why it's so important to help our children, teenagers, and adults reduce their screen time exposure, because excessive screen time exposure is a threat to our brain health, our heart health, our gut health, our academic health, our sleep health, and the list goes on and on and on. This next section is all about tips, strategies, solutions, interventions. So practical tips for Lego-based learning. This is another nice article that just gives other ideas and suggestions. Start small. So maybe you want to start with a Lego club. Maybe you don't have to start with a full-blown club. Just try it out with your kids one-on-one, or try it out with a community group, or if you have a parent group, or bring it to your school teacher and see, maybe the school teacher could implement it in their classroom. Start really small. Follow instructions carefully, really learn about these things. And if you can follow and model instructions carefully, that is teaching kids how to be more detailed orientated, and you're developing patience. The nice thing about Lego-based approaches in learning, there's no right or wrong way. You can allow for mistakes, because when you're building something, maybe there's no mistakes whatsoever. You're just creative. And that can help children become more independent. And it says it teaches better problem-solving skills. Make sure if you do start a Lego program, really celebrate those successes. That's great for kids with trauma and attachment issues. And then again, you're working as a team in some cases, or one-on-one. But team building, those skills can be learned and applied to so many other settings throughout that child's life. What are some skills and knowledge areas maybe you want to at least learn the basics about if you were to start something like this? Well, you probably want to learn a little bit about the research literature on emotional regulation, goal setting, social skills, problem solving, turn taking, have an appreciation of the research literature pertaining to Lego-based interventions. Get some more training in this. Understand the science of play therapy. This can be very helpful. The nice thing about this too, as I mentioned earlier, a therapist obviously can do this, but a therapist doesn't have to do this as well. Maybe you are really focused on coaching. In my opinion, I think coaching approaches are way more effective for people with FASD than traditional talk therapy. Coaching is modeling, teaching, it's a visual approach, it's very hands-on. What is a great hands-on tool you could implement into your coaching? Legos. What does the research say about the benefits of using a coaching approach with any population? Well, it's structured. You're focusing on skills building. It's a realistic activity. It's not an abstract concept. So some people with FASD or some of these other conditions, they definitely struggle with abstract thinking, abstract concepts. Making it visual and concrete with Legos is a great 3D tool then to teach an abstract concept. What's strengths-based coaching? Well, I think this pairs very nicely with attachment and trauma-informed approaches. If you tack on strengths to the beginning of coaching, it's more collaborative in nature. You're going to be more empowering, supportive. You're motivating to that individual. You're focusing on confidence building. You're really focusing on promoting self-efficacy. These things can be taught using Lego bricks. Maybe you have some kids, teenagers or adults that you know that really struggle with social anxiety or one-on-one, it's really difficult. Well, using Legos is a great icebreaker. I struggle with talking to people face to face and that eye contact. I just always have been that way. Looking at people in the eye for a long period of time at first can be really anxiety provoking for a lot of people. If you can use your hands and put something together and snap bricks together, that can bring down the anxiety and then that helps break the ice, fosters trust, connection, always a good thing. And I've said this many times today, if you see this slide here, the nice thing about what we're talking about today, it's flexible. It can be applied in the home, a clinical setting, at school, one-on-one, in groups, face-to-face, telehealth. A growth mindset is another benefit of playing with bricks. I'm a big fan of lifelong learning. Playing with bricks can foster lifelong learning and promote a growth mindset. That's good for anybody. Here's a term maybe some of you haven't heard of, collective intelligence. This is an important thing. Lego approaches is a great way to help enhance collective intelligence. What is collective intelligence? Well, you're working as a team, you're fostering team building, innovation, group collaboration, decision-making. You're teaching people how to address complex challenges as a team environment. You're leveraging diverse perspectives. That's collective intelligence. That's a good thing. I'm in the process of developing a handful of workshops for different groups right now on the topic of trauma-informed brick play. So basically taking Lego bricks and combining it with trauma-informed care approaches. There are articles out there that talk about if you really want to move in the direction of becoming trauma-informed, which is focusing on client empowerment and safety and trust building, maybe incorporate some Legos into that. Sandra, I think we've done an episode on like trauma-informed parenting and attachment-informed parenting. Using Legos in those contexts, I think it's great. What is trauma-informed care? Well, you're really focusing on reducing re-traumatization. So you're really being mindful of the different definitions, the dimensions of trauma. You're focusing on strengths and resilience. you're promoting healing and recovery, and you're really focusing on developing healthier coping strategies. Trauma-informed practices are also rooted in empathy, compassion, gratitude, optimism. You're showing respect to the individual. You're providing support. You are validating the individual. These are all good things for anyone. And unfortunately, we do know if you are a foster care parent, you are absolutely, the majority of time, raising a child who came out of something traumatic. The very nature of being in foster care is traumatic. Maybe the child can't verbalize it, but on a biochemical level, that separation from birth parents, even though maybe that birth parent was very violent and abusive, that's a trauma. Anybody dealing with anxiety or stress? Well, I know I do a lot. So using these Lego bricks can help with reducing anxiety and stress. And if you see here visually, maybe you're a therapist right now and you use cognitive behavioral therapy with your clients. There are articles that do talk about the use of Lego bricks pair very nicely with some of those therapeutic approaches. If you're working in a mental health facility and you're asking yourself, well, maybe I don't have a child with FASD or autism, but I do have a child that has a lot of mental health diagnoses. Legos can be helpful there too. And these are just some ideas to consider if you work in a mental health setting, if you're a therapist, a social worker, and a few other just reminders. So again, definitely check out the YouTube channel. You can see some just different basic tips to take into account. So I talked about emotions before. Here is a nice article that talks about something called a Lego emotion house. So basically, in a nutshell, maybe you're working with kids who have a lot of emotional problems, lots of trauma, attachment issues, and that child just really struggles verbalizing that and making sense of all the emotion that's built up in their body. Take a look at this article. This might be something to consider weaving into your therapy practice, allowing that child to build a house and using the different colors to represent how they feel. And it's a way to externalize those emotions. Here's another wonderful article I would recommend checking out. It's called Helping Kids Express Their Emotions with Lego Bricks. It's a great resource. Building resilience is a great thing. The higher level of resilience we have, we're in a better position to bounce back from tough stuff. Kids that learn resilience as they get older can handle adversity and hardship a lot better. Many articles talk about the use of Lego bricks to help build resilience. Why does it help build resilience? Because it helps people learn from their mistakes, teaches patience, problem solving, adaptability, and you're celebrating achievements, to name a few. What is resilience? What are some other things you want to consider? Well, developing a good sense of humor, having a good self-concept, learning better self-control, creativity, delayed gratification. Most of these things we've talked about today, and there are articles in the Lego-based intervention field that talk about Legos can help target a lot of these things. So that's another reason why it can help foster resilience. And again, why do we want to care about resilience? It's a force field. It's a protective factor. It can help people manage depression, anxiety, even suicidal behaviors, insomnia, PTSD, substance misuse, aggression, and impulse control problems more effectively. Many, many articles support this. What's one of the best skills that we can all learn, in my opinion? Learning to be patient. Basically, stop and reflect, have better self-control. Using Legos can teach patience and perseverance. When you teach patience, what are some skills you'd want to consider if you pair it with Legos? Well, you're providing visual reminders, you're coaching, you're role-playing, you're modeling the behavior, you're making sure you're using appropriate developmental and emotional supports. So a lot of people with FASD don't function at their chronological age. So we need to make sure we're using interventions that match their emotional, social, and developmental age much more effectively. What's a great way to do that? Using Legos. And I just want to plant the seeds here. I am actually putting together a training on this too. Maybe Sandra, if you feel like it's helpful, I can definitely do something like this. So maybe you know somebody and they just hate Legos. They don't want anything to do with them for some reason. Who knows why? Jigsaw puzzles might be another avenue. There's some really cool research out there on the use of jigsaw puzzles. And research says playing and putting together jigsaw puzzles can help improve memory, productivity, increase attention, cognition, mood, collaboration, problem solving, all of that good stuff. And the growth mindset I talked about before, here's another article that just talks about, again, playing with Legos encourages lifelong learning. Maybe you're a professional or you're asking yourself, well, I like this idea, not just for my kids, but I want to bring this to my workplace. Plenty of articles that say using these approaches in your workplace and in an organizational context is a good thing, and it can enhance focus, creativity, reduce stress, and increase staff satisfaction. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, Sandra, just to recap, why would you maybe want to consider learning about this and maybe trying these things out? Because again, it can foster engagement, conflict resolution, executive function, emotional well-being, empowerment, patience, lifelong learning, and the list goes on. This is a lovely article that was published in 2024. Maybe you're still on the sidelines right now and you need a little more nudge to think, well, Legos is a good thing. Well, this article talks about Lego activities can teach 10 very valuable life lessons: emotional intelligence, resilience, solving problems, building strong foundations. It's a great way to teach ethical decision-making and social responsibility. That's a good thing. You want to stay away from the criminal justice system, learn things like that. Embracing diversity, it can really promote that. It can promote budgeting skills. You can teach kids and visually show, like, here's some money management skills by using Lego bricks. Communication, team building, project management, goal setting, creative thinking, innovation. And if you see this here visually, a couple important reminders. Legos do serve as a 3D tool. It's a storytelling tool, visual tool. Lego bricks, role-playing with them is a great way to foster communication naturally. Structured Lego therapy, the research says, yields measurable results. Lego activities benefits people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities. And it's a great way to transform playtime into like really purposeful learning. Thank you, Sandra. Here's my email, folks. Sandra, I'll stick around as long as you want me to. So
Yeah, so that for those who aren't seeing the slide, Jerrod's email is Jerrod, Jerrod, 01234 Brown at live.com, and we will put that in the show notes. So just, really as a wrap up thought here, I learned early on in our journey with our kids as I, became trauma informed, we learned that play is a big part of disarming fear, building trust with our kiddos, building connection, right? Having fun together. It reduces stress and anxiety and all of those things. So, Legos, I know you mentioned jigsaw puzzles. We do a lot of board games. My 20-year-old son who really doesn't like Legos or anything with fine motor skills, he loves board games. So we're always playing either Monopoly. He's learned how to manage, like make change and work with money through playing Monopoly. Decision making when we play Yahtzee. We now started playing Rummy Cube. So he's learning how to, think and strategize and things like that. So, and at the same time, we're spending time together and we're having fun together. And it's just a win-win. And I believe that Legos, you unpacked it here. There's so many benefits, whether you're just playing Legos at home with your kids or you're doing something in a more formal setting, in a more therapeutic setting. It is definitely so beneficial to our kids. And I really believe our listeners are going to take this and really pursue, applying it in some way, because it has such a positive impact on our kids.
Thank you, Sandra. And you mentioned the board games, and that reminds me too, like Play-Doh can be helpful. Origamis, that can be helpful. There's so many different modalities out there. And what I will say, Sandra, is when I was preparing this talk for you, I had about 70 plus slides for this talk. I had 500 slides I developed for this that I had to cut down to 70. There's so much out there. I wish we had a couple more hours because there's some really, really cool stuff out there with this I couldn't get through today. But reach out, folks, if you have questions, you're looking for some resources. And Sandra, any other questions for me? And thank you so much for having me back as well.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Brown. We always appreciate the time that you spend with us because we learn so much and it's all always relevant to our adoption and fostering journey. So thank you so much for being with us again today.
You're welcome, my friend.
And thank you for listening to this episode with Dr. Jerrod Brown. If you enjoyed our conversation, again, we have all of our past episodes with Dr. Brown on our website at justicefororphansny.org. Just click on AFCJ, the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, and you'll see podcast, and you'll be able to find them all there because we've done so many excellent interviews and conversations on topics that are highly relevant for foster and adoptive parents. And that's the easiest way for you to find them. If you don't want to scroll through our whole, queue of episodes, because we've got over 500 episodes, if you listen through Amazon or Spotify and like that. So you can find his more easily if you go to our website. And in addition to this podcast being a great resource for you, we've got others. Once a month, every month, I offer a free 1 hour online intro to FASD workshop where I talk about the impact of prenatal exposure to alcohol, go over all of the symptoms, and then how to begin to take a brain-based approach to our parenting and accommodating our kids with this really essentially FASD is a brain injury. It's a great workshop, not just for parents and caregivers who are learning about FASD, but anybody working with your kiddo, whether it be the Sunday school teacher, the youth group leader, grandparent. You've got older adult biological kids who have no idea why you're parenting so differently or what's going on with your kids, the babysitter, the school teacher, daycare provider, anybody interacting with your kiddos. It's a great it's free, it's 1 hour, and it will really begin to open their eyes to the impacts of FASD. So I offer that every month, as well as a 3 hour workshop where we go a little bit deeper. And I use the facets neurobehavioral model approach, just understanding, again, it's taking what I teach in the 1 hour into more detail. And then we also have some interactive problem solving, coming up with accommodations for our kids, based on certain challenges. So it's definitely the 3 hour one. If you're a parent caregiver, you're definitely going to want that 3 hour workshop. So you can check out our website to see the ones that are scheduled for March and April. And then, of course, we also have parent coaching. So if you would like a more personalized experience where you meet with me on Zoom, one-on-one, whether you just want to meet once for an hour to ask some questions and kind of help you figure out what's going on, or if you want to meet every week for a month or longer, or every other week, or once a month. I have families who do a little bit of whatever fits in best with your schedule. So if you're interested in that, feel free to contact me. Again, through the show notes, you can reach out either signing up online or emailing me directly if you want to set something up. We base it really on our, your schedule. So we do that. And then, of course, we have the Hope for the FASD online support community. that you can check out all of our resources by going to our website, justicefororphans.ny.org, and just click on AFCJ, Adoption and Foster Care Journey, and you'll find everything there, as well as, let's see, the other thing I wanted to tell you is Dr. Brown used slides. I almost forgot because I didn't realize he was going to use slides before we started chatting, or I would have let you know that at the top of the before I introduced him. But if you want to see his slides that go along with his presentation today, you can go to our YouTube channel. It's the Justice for Orphans YouTube channel. JFO is the nonprofit I started about 14 years ago, and everything that we do comes under the umbrella of JFO. So that's the YouTube channel, Justice for Orphans, and every single one of our podcasts you can watch the video version of, not just Dr. Brown's, but all of them. If you want to watch your podcast, you can do that at our YouTube channel. So you can, especially his episodes, you want to see his slides. So for the we did 4 episodes with Dr. Brown in January, all around nutrition as it pertains to individuals with who've experienced trauma, nutrition and FASD, nutrition and autism, nutrition and ADHD. So each one of those episodes he used a slide deck for. They are all on our YouTube channel. You can see those slides there, as well as this one where we talked about Legos today, which I think was a super fun episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and follow us on our social media pages, as well as subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss a single episode. You want to make sure that you're doing that. We'd love to have you follow us. Leave a review if you're able to figure out how to do that. I'm always challenged by that. But also tell your fellow foster and adoptive friends about this podcast so they can listen to it too. Share it with them so that they can find us and enjoy this resource as well. So I am grateful that you spent your valuable time with me today. I am thrilled to have you along for the journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.